Welcome to the real journey of the entrepreneur. The journey of any entrepreneur begins with a decision, then writing down your vision, then the execution of that vision. It is not for the faint of heart. It is for those who understand how powerful your mind is and that you can truly create the life that you deserve. It does require a unique formula that includes belief in yourself, a lot of consistency, connecting with an OG, a lot of tears, missing out on a few events and things, and taking a whole lot of risks that will allow you to see your vision and dream come to pass. This journey of the entrepreneur is from the perspective of a wonderful mother, a business owner, whose goal is to break generational barriers and normalize the process of wealth building and financial wellness through entrepreneurship, all while creating a social and give back along the way. I am sharing this journey with you and invite you to share this process with me. Let's do this together. It's my own, but you have to feel comfortable to own it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I will always support you.
Thank you.
Well, hey there, good people. We are back. We're back for another episode of The Real Journey of Entrepreneurship. Now, I know you're probably wondering, hey, there she is. Who is she going to bring on this time? Well, you won't be disappointed because as the season is coming, you know how we were in the midst of COVID and, all y'all folks was out there traveling. I hope you were utilizing the services of my next guest to get away. So now, as we are thinking about wellness, what does that look like? What does it look like for me? I want to go away. I want to travel. I want to be with my best friends on a beach somewhere, burning backside. So I know when I say that, y'all know where I want to be, on the beach. But I cannot do that without having the talents and the skills of the next individual who is going to be sharing some tips and resources about that space of being in the travel and event management space. Yes, I'm joking about traveling, but that is a part of being an entrepreneur, doing the work, working hard, but also really carving out time specifically for wellness. And for me, travel is one of those things that I find that's really important. But welcome to the journey of the entrepreneurship. My name is Anita Pierce, and I'm really excited to have you join us for another episode. I hope this is not your first time joining us because we have the opportunity to interview courageous entrepreneurs who have decided to either add this to their diverse income streams for themselves, just to do it for fun, or just simply because they want to challenge themselves. As I always say, that being in this space full time as an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. It is one of those things that I find really amazing, and as I dive into it more in depth, it becomes one of those things where I'm able to think about something and write it on a piece of paper, and take it off that piece of paper and also put it into action. So those things are really important when we are thinking about stepping into that space. So as I always say, I have the best seat in the house, primarily because I get to interview courageous individuals who have decided to take the leap. And in this case, it's no different. My next guest, Ms. Julianne Lewis. I hope I'm pronouncing the first name, but I'm sure I'll be corrected. It's okay. Is with Confirmed Booking Network. And I was talking about travel because that is on my intensified list to do more of this year. The company is a travel management company with expertise in corporate travel, short-term apartment rentals, aka Airbnbs, group and event travel management, venue sourcing, And they have the opportunity that if you definitely want to get married and it's a destination wedding, consider utilizing this team to be able to help you to book your wedding room blocks. So I heard that this year is going to be a lot of weddings happening because we outside, outside, outside. So hopefully you will have the opportunity to be able to utilize this specific company. So enough of me. Enough of me. Let me just bring along my guests because, that's what we have to do. You'll see me again soon. Hi, Miss Lewis. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Anita. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Very close. It's actually pronounced Julianne. So it's
Julianne.
Julianne.
We will get it right. Why
But
not?
close.
Well, we will get it. I'll at least get it by the end of this episode. So, Miss Julianne, tell me specifically. I read part of what your organization offers. Do you mind going into more depth? Just tell me about who you are, how you got started in this space.
Well, again, my name is Julianne Lewis, and the owner and founder of Confirm Booking Network. We are a travel management company based in Brooklyn. I got started in the hospitality industry by chance over 23 years ago. I migrated from Jamaica, and I always say I live my life in reverse. When I came to go to school, and eventually didn't end up going to school in the beginning, and ended up going, having a daughter and working, and got busy, and school was put on the back burner. Eventually got a job working at the front desk of a hotel called the Hudson Hotel, which was run by, at the time, Ian Schrager, one of the formative players in the hospitality business for, independent boutique properties. And so with that start in the industry, I was hit with the bug. I mean, growing up in Jamaica, tourism was, a big factor in the country's economy. But where I grew up was not a big touristy area. I grew up on the south coast of Jamaica, which is more the normal coast in a sense. So we were mostly away from the tourists. So when I got the opportunity to, work in the hospitality industry here, I jumped at it. I was modeling, and that was starting to fizzle in the sense that back then, now dark skinned girls are, like the thing, but back then we weren't. And so it was a struggle to try to get, jobs modeling. And so, I told myself, it's time to settle down and try to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. So going back, I started the job at Ian Traeger, worked there for about 5 years in front office at the front desk, and eventually got other opportunities with Thompson Hotels into sales, worked with some of the top companies in the city, eventually worked my way up to being a director of sales. My last property was a corporate housing company down in the Wall Street area where I was director of sales. So fast forward to 2018, a friend of mine who worked in this space, she was about to venture off on her own because she's been in sales for a while, and she's, was thinking time to, branch off and start doing something for herself. And so she was kind of trying to get me to come along and, join her. And at first I was like, I'm doing pretty well. I'm making good money. I don't have the stress of anything. I don't really need to, go start a business. And fast forward a little bit later, 2019, well, the end of 2019, everything was perfect. Life for 2020 looked absolutely great. I was ready to rock it. Started 2020, and boom, COVID hit. So after COVID hit, my industry, as you know, in New York City, took the biggest hit. We were shut down. We were put to a halt. Most properties closed instantaneously. Fortunately for me, the property that I was at was a long-term stay, extended stay property. So we were still getting some business, but just not enough for, for us to kind of maintain. And eventually at the end of the year, the property, because they were actually a startup, they closed. And so when they closed, I was like, oh my God, they're saying this thing is not going to be back until 2024. That was, because they had no cure, no anything, no idea. And I was like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Because 4 years is a long time and everything was, shut down. So fast forward to the end of 2020, I was just like, after I got laid off, my company closed. What am I going to do? I don't really act, and having that downtime, I started thinking, I don't necessarily want to go, and should that business come back, do I really want to go into long hours, 16, 18 hours for someone else? And so going back to my friend who was trying to encourage me to become an entrepreneur, in between time she had written a book that is called Move with Faith, and it was an ebook about the steps you'd need to take to become an entrepreneur in our business, but necessarily it's the steps that you need to take to open a business. And so that I took the time to finally read the book, because I'd bought it a while back, but I just hadn't read it. And while I was reading it, I'm like, you know what? I definitely need to really take this seriously, because I was, producing millions of dollars for my bosses a year. And I'm like, a fraction of a commission of that commission could be way more than my salary if I could, develop the business in the right way. And I'm like, I could do this. And so one day we went away for a little bit, to Barbados. And I'm like, I need to start this. So the first thing I did was got my EIN number. But while I was about to get my EIN number, I'm thinking, what am I going to call myself? What do I want to call myself? What do I want to be? And so within a few minutes, I was just thinking, and I'm like, bookings are always being confirmed. And no matter what I book, it's going to be like a play of booking.com. So those two words are really two key words that people would be searching for whenever they're looking for anything travel. And so I decided to name it Confirmed Booking. And initially, network meaning, because it's such a multifaceted business that I've created, and I created it multifaceted in the sense that I wanted to not lock myself in a box. So I can do corporate travel, I can do short-term leasings, I can do, the event travel, as you mentioned, weddings. I don't necessarily plan weddings, but I can find the place for you. I could source the place for you. I can help you with your room blocks for your guests, things of the sort. And so after I got my EIN and I decided what I wanted to name myself, I read through my little book and my little step-by-step guide, and it truly guided me into, the things that I needed to do to start a business. But, prior to that, I never thought that I'd wanted to be an entrepreneur. And as you said, it's not for the faint of heart, because after I started and I got everything going, I was like, wait a minute, how am I going to book the reservations for people? I can't constantly call a hotel for pricing. I need to figure out how I'm going to, set things up. So for me, everything was not pre-planned, but just like scaled or happened as I went along, piece by piece by piece. Because had I sat down and thought it all through, I probably would have backed out. But, just having to meet each challenge and overcome them as I go along was perfect in the way of, how I set this business up. Just reaching out to folks that I know. For instance, when I was about to create my website, I started calling people. The pricing here is ridiculous in terms of what people want for, just to build a website. And I ended up sourcing via a friend of mine, a company out in Kenya. And I got my website done at a fraction of the cost. Now that young man is not necessarily on my payroll, but he's on my list of people that I can call on if I need to make any edits or make any changes or do anything in regards to technology on my site. And it creates like you eventually create like a network eventually of people around you that you can utilize to grow your business.
It's very interesting listening to your entrepreneurial progression because you're still relatively a business under 5 years.
Yes.
And so there's a couple of things that I heard you mention about, first your transition. It sounds like you were scared to do it, but it was almost like you were in a position where you had very limited options, but you wanted to go forth with trying and betting on yourself. That's what I
Yes.
heard.
Yes. I mean, coming out of COVID, after I got laid off, um, it took a long time for me to get to the level of directorship that I got to. And in our industry, believe it or not, there's not a lot of Black folks,
Mm,
especially in at my level as a director. You'll find a lot of people of color working in housekeeping, maybe in operations side of the business, but on the side that's facing customers, you're very, very few people of color that you'd find. And so it's not an industry that I found that was nurturing to me and to my career. I pretty much nurtured my career and fought for everything that I got within the industry. By one, working hard, trying to show people that I can do it. And a lot of times you're still passed over. I mean, I remember a time where I was training someone to be my supervisor, and that happens often in the industry. It happens often. And so coming out of COVID, or when COVID happened, I'm like, I think I want to do something for myself. And as I said before, I was processing millions of dollars worth of business for my properties, and I'm like, I can work with these clients to help facilitate them finding the space that they need. And as the liaison, meaning like the go-between, because I have first-hand knowledge of how the hotels operate. I know the ins and out. I know, what the rates are really. And so I can, parlay that with my clients and my customers and let them know that I will be able to negotiate a better rate for you, because I know the ins and outs. I know the words to say. I know when their needs are. Things
mm,
like that. And so coming out and starting the business, as I said, first it was I don't want to go back, and
mm.
second is like, what am I going to do? And third, I'm like, I have 20 years of knowledge doing this. I can definitely be that liaison and sell myself versus selling a property, sell myself as that person that could be your voice, representing or going to these properties to negotiate on your behalf.
There's a couple of things that's really interesting. First thing I note is that um, industries, at some point, we just check out because they don't value us, I believe, honestly, as just Black women, right?
Hmm.
It's not, I don't want to just say, I want to really distinguish that as Black women, a lot of industries do not value, because I used to work in financial services and I
Hmm.
don't want to go back.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in the quality of life. In
Hmm.
my experience was, I would say, meh. It was okay. It wasn't terribly horrible, but I just know it would not embrace the person who I have become at this point, right?
Right.
So that's just for me. The other thing that I noted, that you mentioned, was about um, really taking the time to know the industry that you've worked in, the hospitality industry, and you're taking that knowledge to now be able to grow and develop your own business. And stats show that, at least over the past 3 years, that women-owned businesses are one of the fastest growing businesses out there. But
Hmm.
they also didn't segue or really consider the fact that Black women-owned businesses have always been the thing that has kept the economy going. Whether they want to include us in the stats, the facts are true that Black
Hmm.
women-owned businesses are at the and should be included in that number demographics as well. The other thing that I heard you mention was about um, training other folks, and then
Years ago, guys.
them utilizing the skills to now become your boss.
Hmm.
I find that to be so disrespectful.
Believe it or not, it happens, and it happens often.
It happens in every industry,
Yes.
um, except when you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I've yet to
Yes.
see or hear that happen. Although part of what we are doing is helping to build an increase in economy. But I just wanted to share to elevate that because a lot of times when we're sharing our story, we don't like to always tell the truth, right?
Uh-huh.
And the truth is that the industries were not always kind to us, because
No.
if they were kind to us, we probably wouldn't mind staying there. But there was always something that causes us to check out. So here we are.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. I mean, over the years, like I said, I've really worked very hard to prove myself over and over again, and most of the times are passed over. So, in the hospitality industry, it's very um, well, I won't say incestuous, but there's a lot of cronyism. So a
Mm,
lot of friends hire friends, especially in sales. You could be a top seller at a property and they change the general manager per se. And that new general manager comes in. He now looks around and say, I don't want or like you on my team. So I'm just going to go find somebody else I like. And next thing you know, you're out of a job just because somebody came in and they don't like or want you to be on their team. So again, that's also one of the reasons why I'm like, I'm done. And I think COVID gave me the segue that I needed or the push that I needed. I mean, I'm from a country where the entrepreneurial bug or spirit was embedded in me. I just hadn't discovered it myself, in the sense that there are jobs available, but most of the time coming out of school there are no jobs available, so you
mm,
have to come up with an idea or come up with something to start, to do to work and sustain yourself. And my mom was one of those entrepreneurs where she had a ninth grade education and did not have job a regular job per se. Factories were no more, and so she became a seller of everything. She farmed, she did a lot of different things just to make ends meet and to make sure that we got what we need, or we were fed, we had clothes, we had a roof, and all of that. So every day she'd go out and do something. She was always hustling at something. They call them hustlers in Jamaica, but yeah, she was always a hustler, just trying to do anything that would make things make sure she makes some money. And I guess that's why I created my business in such a multifaceted way, because if I can't get a piece of corporate business, I know I might find a piece of leisure travel business, or I can find an event that someone is doing. So rather than just sticking to one lane, I try to make sure that it's multifaceted. And for now, for me, all my outreaches have just been to people that I've known in the industry, I've worked with, companies that I've worked with, and people that I've given business to are now giving business back to me. So it's growing, and I can't wait to see what it's going to be in the next few years.
and that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Travel is something that I don't think is going anywhere. I have
No.
a follow-up question. So when you started, what were your startup costs like for your business?
Well, interestingly enough, um, people always say, "Oh, you have to have a business plan. You have to have a business plan. You have to have a business plan." I did not have a business plan. I had ideas in my head. I was envisioning things as I was going along to see, what I needed to do. So my startup cost, I would say, was roughly about 2,500. And this is mainly, I was gifted my laptop by my old job when they closed. So that was like my initial investment, initial thing. So that gave me, all the things that I need, the tool I need to start. I had to pay the fees for my not the tax ID, but my registration of my LLC. Uh, I was trying to do the personally do the advertising that's needed in New York. And I find it was a little bit of a challenge calling the different newspapers. And I found they were charging me the same as if I'd gone through a service. So I eventually just said, you know what, here's the $650. You go ahead and run it for me. Outside of that, my internet and web cost was roughly about 1,000 that I initially, but since then I've paid a little bit more for some other add-ons and some updates and things. But relatively I mean, I think the big cost of it is just my knowledge of over the years, paying for what I paid for learning business in school. I got an associate in business management earlier on when I went back to school. So I think people need to look within themselves and see what it is that they're passionate about. For me, it was travel. I love traveling. I mean, like, this year alone, I have about 5 different trips that I have scheduled. I'm like, if I was sitting behind a desk, I would not be able to do that.
Mhm.
So it's allowing me the flexibility to go see the world, as I'm traveling and I'm developing new contacts and such. It also gives me the flexibility where I could shut things down and turn things off for a while and not be on all the time, or having to get up in the morning to ride the subway to the city to get to a desk that I'm chained to 5 days a week, and that monotony. So I love it. And I'm like, I should, when Nina told me to do this in 2018, I should have jumped on it, but I hadn't. But um, you know, find I would say find what you're passionate about, because it may not cost anything or cost much to become an entrepreneur and to start something on your own. It could be you like knitting sweaters, and next thing you know, you can have a platform on Etsy selling your sweaters, and you're an entrepreneur. So the entryway, because of technology, I would say, is making it so much easier. Because again, too, there was a point when I said I didn't know how I was going to transact business, but talking to people, reaching out to people, asking questions, I found connections that I needed. So now I can transact business and book whatever business I need for anybody going anywhere, by just simply opening up my computer and plugging in some dates
Mm.
and make an offer for them. So
And that sounds really amazing. So my next question deals with this idea of because oftentimes when I think about those who are starting out the business, they're usually solopreneurs, right?
mhm.
Um, so for those who are in that space as a solo entrepreneur, what does solo travel look like? What does solo travel look like for those who are in the industry, who are entrepreneurs and who are interested in traveling alone? What does that look like for them?
You mean like from the travel side, from the traveler side, or the entrepreneur who wants to get into travel?
So let's start with those who want to travel in this space as an entrepreneur. What could something like that look? Could
I mean,
when they book you? What does that look like in terms of experience? Some may be afraid to go alone. What does it essentially look
well,
like?
I mean, it all comes down to the individual. As you can see, in my motto for my company is, where do you want to go? So for the individual traveler who may want to travel somewhere, who's not sure about where they want to go, I have an interview with them in terms of, like, what do you like, what kind of places do you like to see, or what kind of environment you like to be around. And from there, Do you want to go hot or do you want to go cold? Do you want to go far? Do you want to go close to home? So, those are some of the questions that I would ask. And for an individual traveler, I would, try to find some of the safer cities because, I mean, they're always issues whenever you travel, but there's also safer places that people will, as an individual traveler, would feel safe enough to go. And I'd want to test their comfort level in terms of like when you're out and about, how do you feel about certain things in terms of being in a strange environment. So from a solo traveler perspective, it comes down to the individual. So it's almost like an interview process, to see what their needs are and what they feel like they want to engage in while they're traveling.
And for the ones who are interested in following into the space of the travel and
Being a
event
traveler.
management industry, what could that potentially look like, specifically for businesses, for
Hmm.
those who reflect us? What could that look
Okay.
like for them?
I mean, there's so many different entry point to travel. You could enter into travel not knowing anything about travel because you have companies out there that are looking for people who can process travel for them. So they provide the training, and also you'd be an independent employee in a sense, to the point where it's almost like you're running your own business. I tend to try to stay away from some of those kind of companies because some of them are like multi-level marketing type people. So I wouldn't encourage, if once you discover that it sounds like somebody's going to be making money off your services, it shouldn't be the case. You have some that will allow you to, like my startup, to set up shop and allow you onto their platforms, and you run and book your own business. So I don't answer to them. I book my business through them, and they send me my commissions once they're booked. I can do markups if I need to because their system allows me to do that. So depending on what's necessary, I may have to add different fees to the booking for the traveler that I'm booking. But they have no control over me, and I have no control over what they do. They provide me that entryway into making sure I can book for my travelers. But there are several different companies out there. You have group based companies that only book groups, and they like to have those people coming in as an independent 1099 person, to come in and process those bookings for them. So there's multi layers or levels of entering into the space. For me, I did not want to be a 1099 under anyone. I remember having a conversation with this very big company, and it was during COVID, so they were pretty much, I guess, preparing for, or talking to people like myself who may want to take a different path once COVID was over. And I asked her, can I brand myself while using your resources? And she was like, no, no branding. Then I was like, no, I don't want that. If I can't utilize my brand, then I'm not going to go out there and grow your business. That's like getting up and getting on the subway and going to work again. And I did not want that. So I stepped away from that, and I just continued my inch by inch until everything was completely done. And now I have I would say, a relatively successful business, in the sense that it's been growing year over year, and I hope to see more and more growth within the next 5 years.
And
And
that's because you've opted to be independent, but still
independent.
partner with some of the former organizations that you've either worked with or
Mhm.
have established long-term partnerships with over
Yeah.
years of service.
Yeah. For instance, I there's this company that I used to work with in my extended stay company, ALE. They process long-term stays for their clients, for people who have issues, insurance issues with their homes, where they need to be out of their homes because of renovations or maybe a fire or something. And I'm able to get some of their leads and search for apartments or places to stay for their people. I've tried to partner with the National Urban League in terms of them sending, referrals to me for businesses. I'm a woman certified business, and I'm certified with New York, and I'm also certified with New Jersey. And I'm trying to, get get a little segue into the government aspect of things, as I mentioned earlier, to try to see what kind of partnerships I can ultimately get out of government. And one of the things that I've, just something that's been in the back of my mind, and I know you mentioned that your company kind of help guide people in terms of, I guess making connections, was there are a lot of inner city schools, and most people of color don't know much about travel. They don't know the first thing to do in terms of travel. They often think traveling is expensive, and so it's never looked at. It's always pushed away to the side. Traveling it costs. You can travel for cheap, or you could travel expensively, but a lot of people don't do it because they don't think that they can afford it, but they can. It all comes down to planning. A lot of people don't realize that there are ways to I guess in the Black community it's called layaway. You could lay away a travel trip, one of the most exciting trip that you can have to any country in the world. There are opportunities and options, but it comes down to planning. You can't wake up tomorrow and say, oh, I want to go to Jamaica, and then you look in your bank account, oh, I can't make it to Jamaica. You can get to Jamaica if you decide to plan properly. So it comes down to planning. And for me, I'm looking for opportunities to share this knowledge of how to travel with people of color, especially. And also, like, I'm actually working in the DC area right now. I do consulting as well, and I'm consulting with a hotel property. And it's the weekend, beautiful weekend, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to the museum, go check out a museum. So I went to the Air and Space Museum this weekend, and I'm wandering around in the museum, and there are no Black folks. I was the only Black one until I saw one Black family, and they weren't even Black. They were more like Middle Eastern or something, but they were the only other dark skinned people I saw. And you see all these white families with all their children, and I'm like, how the hell is none of our people in this place enjoying what we're paying for with our tax dollars, that's creating those spaces and setting them up there, but we're not there? And the reason, it could be a lot of factors. A lot of people, like I said, don't understand how travel works and how to make it work for them. But it comes down to education, and I would like an opportunity to educate people on how to travel and where, and help guide them into going places.
It's interesting, and I'm dating myself from the financial services industry. They used to have CDs called vacation clubs or
Hmm.
holiday like savings,
Hmm.
right? Whereas you would take whatever you designate, $100 bi-weekly or every week, however you get paid, to go into these specific CDs that were um, the rates were a little bit above, either the savings. They had
Hmm.
terms 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, however you wanted to save. And
Hmm.
that's how we were able to save for vacation. I mean, there are other ways within our community that we know of, susus.
Hmm.
You can borrow. Unfortunately, most of us go into debt sometimes when we're planning. But there are a number of ways. But when I think about initially, it's economics and education uh,
Yes.
that I think about. And
Hmm.
your point about planning becomes really important when we're looking to travel, as I plan to do. I don't have 5 on the calendar, but I definitely have 2 this year
Hmm.
that I'm
That's
doing.
good. That's
So
good.
my
Yeah,
option.
it definitely comes down to, thinking things through and education again, and getting that information out to people. And, right now in the process of trying to put together like some packages and stuff that I can share with people and share with them that you don't have to end up in debt at the end of it. If you say you want to go to Tahiti next year, you could say, okay, I pick out the budget, the travel budget, meaning hotels, airfare, all of that, package it, and you could divide that down and say, okay, how much coffee can I not have
Mhm.
per day to make sure I take this trip to Tahiti next year? And you dedicate, you break it down, whether monthly, weekly, or however you want to plan it out. And by the time your travel day comes around, you have a ticket in your hand. You go into Tahiti and you're coming back not owing anybody anything. So it's all about planning. And you go and you have a great experience and you come back and and every year I have a friend, a colleague of mine who she plans a very special trip for her birthday annually. I try to go on some of them with her. And this past October, she went to Morocco and Lisbon, and I went with her this time. And that trip, it could be considered expensive, but it was planned out, certain monthly payments at a certain time. And we were in Morocco and we had a fantastic time. We were in Portugal, fantastic time. And I come back and there's no credit card debt
Mhm.
because it's paid for in cash. I decided I'm gonna carve out this amount of money every month to pay towards going away somewhere to get some peace of mind.
Mm. And that's really something to look forward to, in terms
Mhm.
of vacationing. But I did have a question about, seasons, because often, when we're thinking about, best times and best places to go during certain seasons, like, do we go through hurricane season and to
Mhm.
get the deals, or, what does that look like? So if someone wanted to go to, places in the
Mhm.
Caribbean, what does that look like in terms of cost or best time of year?
Well, I would say stay away from the Caribbean if you don't want to pay too much during, say, from October, November through February, March, somewhere thereabout. That's like the most expensive time, and that's because it gets so cold up north, everybody wants to run south. So, but then if you can still go in the summertime, but then it's so hot. You may not have as fun a time, but that's the difference where you'll find the pricing. And no matter when you plan the trip from, it doesn't matter, it's known as a busy season, so the rates are always going to be on a high level or a higher level, even if you're booking a year out. So and airfares have gone up now so dramatically. I can't. I used to take trips to Jamaica to see my mom, and I'd pay $700-800 for my daughter and myself. Now, 700-800 plus to 1,000 plus is for me alone, and it's just astronomical. And I'm hoping things change and they go down, but uh you still, just if you plan it, you can have it. I have a small group that's going to Jamaica in July. It's a young lady who's graduating, just getting her master's, and she put together the trip, and we were able to look through at some hotel pricing, came up with a price point that she feels her and her friends could be able to afford. They put themselves on a payment plan and they're paying it off as they go. So by July, they're ready to go to take off. Now we're about to start looking at some excursions and things for them to do while they're there. So, again, it just comes down to plan. A lot of people's come. I've done some trips over during COVID and when rates were super low, and some of those people have come back and looking to go again. And when they're hearing the price point, they're like, "Oh my God, it's crazy," because things have somewhat gone back way beyond normal.
Mhm.
And so, even though it's expensive again, though, you can plan and you can travel.
So that sounds like a to-do. So, as we wrap up our conversation that went so wonderfully and so rapidly, wanted to have you just share a couple of tips for those who are interested in following your footsteps within the travel and event management industry. What tips can you offer them in starting?
Well, I would say first, really understand what you want to do within the space, because there's so much that you could do. You could be a tour manager, you could be a travel manager like I do by booking, business for people. You could become a guide to, show people around your neighborhood. There's that's an industry as well. Most people don't even realize that if you know your neighborhood and you know it like the back of your hands, you could start a tour management company and do tours for your neighborhood. Um, you know it doesn't take that much necessarily, and even if you have no experience in travel and you want to learn about the industry, there are companies out there that teaches the different steps about the industry and what you need to do. You have companies, especially like with the cruise ship. I don't do cruises necessarily, but I could if I need to. You have cruise ship company who hire people to sell their cruises for them. So there are many entryway into the travel space. And Google, let Google be your friend. Just throw that word, just throw a few words out there. I guarantee you're going to get some responses that you never expect, and give you like some guidelines and some tips in how to get into the business. I mean, fortunately for me, I got the entryway into the business by just responding to a job lead, and I made a career out of it. So I'm kind of stepping into this with the knowledge of how the business runs and how it operates. But you can get into it with zero experience, because I got into it with zero experience.
Wow. So there you have it. There you have it. For those who are interested in reaching out to Julianne Lewis and her team, I'm going to place her information there, confirmbooking.net on Instagram, or you can send an email to connect so that you can get recharge for yourself. Wanted to just highlight some of the, because you brought up some great key points throughout that conversation. Just understand specifically what you want to do within this travel industry space. Find what you're passionate about and meet the challenges as they arise, overcome them, and ensure that you plan accordingly. Um, again, finding what you're passionate about may not cost you a whole lot to start your own business, but you should have a dream, a vision on what it is that you want to do with your specific life. Um, Other key points is that you don't have to end up in debt um, with a trip, but you can definitely plan out your expenses, that you're able to have a good time, and also to be able to not come back with having mounts of credit card debt, which is really important, especially in this economy that we're in currently. And the other thing is really understand what you really want to do in this space. So I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule, but I'm not going to let you go just yet, because we usually like to wrap up the show with some rapid one word questions that are kind of fun, but it will deepen our understanding about who you are as a
Okay.
person. So let me know when you're ready.
I think I am.
I
Go.
think I am too.
Mhm.
Um, you're from Jamaica, but what's your favorite borough in New York?
Brooklyn. I've lived in the borough for 20 years. When I first came to New York, I lived in the Bronx and I moved to Manhattan, both briefly, and I ended up in Brooklyn and I haven't left.
Yeah, briefly for the other ones, because Brooklyn
Mhm.
is where it's at.
Yeah.
So when you travel, do you prefer short term or long term stays?
A little bit of both, because sometimes if you go, for instance, to a resort, I think 4 days is enough for you to get what they're offering. If you stay longer, it becomes monotonous. Or I like to take trips where I split things up. So you kind of do 5 days in one spot and then you hop to another spot and you enjoy. And it could be same country or different country, because sometimes when you travel to different places, bordering countries are very close by. So it's not too hard to country hop. So, 4 or 5 days, I think it's a long enough time for you to kind of take in, soak up, and enjoy a place that you travel to. So I would say definitely not quite long, but somewhere in between, midway,
Cold,
short.
cold or warm weather person in terms of like travel?
Warm, definitely warm, because I like to spend my time outdoors, and going outside, it's not going to be fun. Although I plan to take a trip to Alaska, I definitely want to see a glacier, so I'm planning that for the future. That's probably the only cold trip I'll take, and maybe the South Pole.
Mm. Heels or sneakers?
Heels, sneakers during the day, but definitely heels at night.
Ice cream or smoothies?
Ice cream.
And this final question is not one word. What is the legacy that you would like to leave for the community in which you are currently serving?
Well, the legacy I'd like to leave, I would say, is knowledge that I can impart, especially about the travel space. Again, like I said, most people of color, you're not finding them in higher positions within the space. And I would definitely want to do something about that. Unfortunately, it's not the easiest thing to do. But I recently saw, when people were coming back out from COVID, and a lot of industry people were posting pictures on LinkedIn, and every time they post a group picture, it was operations with a whole bunch of people of color. And then the upper echelons, meaning the general managers and the directors, and they're all white. And I was like, you know what? I have to say something about this. I'm like, it's probably going to be buried, but I need to say something. So I put hashtag hospitality is so white. So nobody has picked up on the hashtag yet, but I think I want to make that a hashtag, because it needs to be looked at.
Wow. You're starting a trend.
Yes.
You are starting a trend. So, any final words or thoughts?
Uh, my final word is, if you are dreaming about becoming an entrepreneur, don't let that business plan and situation scare you, because you don't need one. You just need to understand what it is that you want to do, and just start writing those things down one by one. It does not have to be a formal business plan. Like I said earlier, technology has made entryway into a lot of different industries very, very easy. So you just do your research to see how you can segue and get into whatever it is that you're looking to do. Again, when I started this, I had no idea how I was gonna do anything. Uh, Once I got the business acumen things out the way, I'm like, okay, what next? How do I do certain things?
Mhm.
And I started asking questions, talking to people, and finding out different little things to do. And next thing you know, I'm in business. I'm transacting business, and I couldn't. The first piece of business I transacted, when I got my first commission check, I saved it. I mean, I saved all the checks that I've gotten, but that one I think I want to put up in a frame.
But I hope you cashed it though.
Oh yeah, I did cash it. Fortunately, you don't have to give it to the bank anymore. You can
There
keep
you
it.
go. Yeah. There you go. There
Yeah,
you go. That's a good one.
yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. We look forward to having you come back to share. But again, to all of those who are watching or listening, you can definitely check confirmbooking.net and on Instagram. Please like, share, and follow at confirmed booking, or just simply, if you want to connect, info at confirmbooking.net. No excuses. Technology is here.
Hmm.
Miss Lewis, we will see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, take good
All
care.
right, take care.
So there you have it. It is one of those things where I say, as an entrepreneur, you have the best industry, which is, if you want to travel, do not hesitate to reach out to Julianne and her team, Miss Lewis and her team. Again, I'm just going to share confirmbooking.net on Instagram, confirm booking And also you can send an email to info@confirmbooking.net. Wanted to just reshare some highlights. Definitely find what you're passionate about. It may not cost you much to start your own business. And usually in the service industry, you just have to have an idea, good internet service, and a laptop or phone these days, because our phones are definitely running as they are as laptops as well. Wanted to also share um, other key highlights. Having to meet each challenge and overcome them as you go along was something that was perfect for Miss Lewis, for everything that she has within the industry. Sometimes when you are starting out within different spaces, you don't realize that you are setting a pathway for others to come behind you. You're just doing what you feel that's in your gut and that you're led to do in those specific spaces. And finally, you have to understand what specifically you want to do when you are entering in specific spaces. And it's really key, as you don't have to know everything, right? Do not think that as you're entering into these specific spaces that you have to know everything. I can tell you that we're doing these shows, and as we are growing and develop, we are improving on the processes as we go. But I don't want to leave you without sharing some additional information about what we do with the show. If you're interested in being featured or you want to buy ad space, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We are on all of the social platforms, the Insta, the TikTok, the LinkedIn, all the social platforms. So please feel free to reach out to us in there, or you can email or call us 718-691-8966, or you can email us at info@11375.com. But if you want to reach me, please visit 11375.com. Or again, please like, share, and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at 11375. So I'm excited, and I hope that you are, to learn more about what that looks like in the travel industry. Hopefully, you are being wise and not going into debt in order to be able to have access to these experiences. But you're definitely, definitely, definitely going out there and putting resources aside to be able to enjoy and create the life and space that you want. So, on that note, please check us out, 11375. Look forward to seeing you soon. And thank you for joining the real journey of the entrepreneurship. Bye-bye. Welcome to 11375. My name is Anita Pierce, and I am the owner of a New York-based MWBE certified business consultancy. We focus on business education for startups, and we also connect mid-sized companies, corporations, community-based organizations, and government agencies to foster affordable solutions that will allow your business to flourish. We elevate the awareness of our communities with regards to financial, mental, and also economic wellness. Some of our services include project management, training and facilitation, stakeholder engagement, and also advocacy within the business community. If you're interested in some of our services or all of them, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We're on all of the social platforms at 11375, or you can check us out at our website at 11375.com. We look forward to supporting you and your business goals.